Welcome to the 2025 celebration of teaching and learning. Like, what a moment, right? I feel like every year I have the honor of getting up on this stage and saying, wow, can you believe what's going on in the world? Or can you believe we just got through with that? And every year it gets frothier, right? Like it's not amping down. It just continues to amp up. And here we are at the end of another academic year together. And thank you for coming on this time sort of between your classes are done and graduation. It's great to see you all as always. Today we're going to be talking about AI and technology, and the way that technology is integrated into our lives and into our classrooms is something that I have been thinking about and dealing with for years. When I went to college, there were computers, but computers were not part of my workflow. They were not part of my education. Email was not around yet. It would take another 7 years for email to come around. And I was moving my parents from their house, and I went into their basement, and there were these boxes and boxes and boxes. And and they were all labeled with my dad. I said, what are these things? And he said, oh, they're printouts. Oh, what are they printouts of? And he's like, oh, the internet. What do you mean? And he's like, there are things that I want to make sure I remember from the internet. Okay, like maybe 20 boxes. Like, that's not no, the internet's always there, right? Like you don't need to print it out, right? And it was yet one more moment where I was like, oh, this is, it's a generational thing, right? Like it still needs to be physical for him. I discreetly threw them all out as we were moving because he won't go through them. But this idea again of technology is one that I think it's always going to be new to us because it's always evolving. When I started grad school in 2007 in the photography department at Hunter College, they had a cutting edge computer lab. And it was 4 computers in like a corner office. And I was one of the first cohorts of students that had been brought in to earn a master's in combined media. That's what they were calling the people that were starting to use computers in their artistic practice. And they didn't know what that meant really, and there weren't any names for it yet. So we were called combined media. And I remember my first day, I was so excited. I get to school and we go into the classroom, and there are 7 of us in this sort of registered for this course, and there are these 4 computers, and nobody shows up to teach the class. And we're like, what's going on? What's happening? And so we finally find someone, and we're like, hi, we're here for the class. And finally someone comes in and says, oh, you know what? You weren't able to find anybody to teach it, and you guys were registered. And so what we thought you guys could do is just just come each week and mess around on the computers and teach yourselves. And we were like, oh, okay, sure, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And so we spent a semester in this room. We'd all show up at the same time every week, which is in hindsight miraculous. But and we just sit on these computers and teach ourselves these software programs. And at the end of the semester, we felt like we were bona fide experts, right? Like we had learned everything on our own. We were amazing. And then 3 weeks later, I went to a free Apple workshop, in their store. And they were doing some things in Adobe and Creative Suite and Photoshop. And Ed will appreciate this. I sat there and they started working. I was like, oh, basically we'd learned how to use the programs, but incorrectly, right? There were dozens of ways that you can do one thing. And we learned the most roundabout way that you could do. We didn't really, we learned it, but not well. Right? That was a lot of my academic experience with computers was learning how to do things, but never being taught. Having access to tools, but not being taught how to use them. And so when I started teaching here 22 years ago, I was in the art department, and the art department was still struggling with this question. Like, do you teach a class about a software program, or do you teach a class where you integrate the tool into your projects? How do you teach a tool and ideas at the same time? Okay. And it's not a conversation that we've necessarily gotten away from, just worth mentioning. But during that time, I developed these digital truisms. And it was a way for me to help the students navigate the idea that even though they were digital natives, their relationship to the computer was the internet. They didn't actually understand how to use the tools or basic file saving, all sorts of things. They understood how to use the internet and browse the internet. And they needed to think about their relationship to computers and software really differently. And I needed to think about it differently because, and this is a big one, because I hear this a lot when I do professional development, because I was in a classroom and in a space with tools that I did not have access to when I was in school. Right? I was in a space with people that had been raised with these things that were relatively new to me. And it's a big deal because so many times I hear, well, when I was a student, I never, right? Well, yeah, okay, I believe when you were a student, you didn't do that. But we can't possibly relate to the experience that our students have with technology because ours is always stepped back a step or two. So these digital truisms were my way of trying to understand how to interface with technology, to teach students how to interface with technology. And this is an unabridged list. There are 12 that I made my students memorize, but I only brought in a couple for today. And this was the first one. And it was that search changes everything, right? Like you used to, if you wanted to know something, you used to go to a library, you used to look in the, the Dewey Decimal System, right? You go get your numbers, you'd find your book, you'd read it, maybe you'd photocopy it, you memorize it. If you didn't do that, you didn't have access to it. You didn't have access to the knowledge. Now, if you have access to the internet, it's not about having to remember everything. It's about understanding how to do the search well. Profoundly different than when I was in the classroom, right? Because if you don't know actually how to do the search well, you're not probably going to find what you're looking for. The second one, right, you've got to be a perpetual student. Anything that we're talking about today, 10 years, obsolete, right, period. We've all, if we're going to engage with technology, if we're all going to engage with contemporary tools, have to remember that we are always students too. And like, I hope that isn't terrifying, that gives you a bit of grace, right? You're going to get into the classroom at some point and have these conversations about technology that might feel a little bit over your head too. We're all students and we will all perpetually be students. And then the next one to remember is that when we have these tools, whether it's Photoshop, whether it's the internet, whether it's AI, that you still need to have some very concrete skills that aren't digital, right? You're still making something, you're just using digital tools. You still need to be able to communicate your ideas. You need to be organized. You need to be able to develop concepts. You have to have excellent time management. Those ideas aren't going away. Those skill sets aren't going away. You're just going to be using computers to help you with the process. And then the last one, and I love this one, and I love this image that AI generated. I should have said that at the beginning. AI generated all my images for me. There's almost always more than one way to do something. And that's true for our students. And that's true for us as educators. And I think that's why we're here today. I think we are really interested in this tool. I think we're really interested in AI. I think we're a little confounded by AI. I think we're a little frustrated by AI. Maybe you're a little excited by AI. Maybe you see great potential in AI. I think you're here because you recognize that there's always more than one way to do something. And in our case today, we're going to be thinking about the way we teach and the way we interface with this new technology. So thank you again for coming and spending this time with us this morning. Again, it really is always great to see everybody at this moment in the semester. We don't get to do it anymore with graduation, right? Graduation used to be its own like kind of party. We're separated now. So this is our moment together. So um, I look forward to hearing Lance. I look forward to seeing you guys later, hearing the breakout room discussions. And now I am going to turn the floor over to Dr. Helen O'Brien, who is going to lead us in a mindfulness moment. Thank you, Nicole.
So the lights are going to start to come down. And I want to take morning to everyone and thank you for celebrating along with us at CPL. I'm going to guide us in a short meditation, about 7 minutes. And it's going to focus on embracing stillness. Oh, shoot, you told me. So yeah, did you say working with the how basic is a microphone? So before we, okay, I'm going to guide us through a short meditation that will focus on embracing stillness. And the idea behind this meditation is before we welcome new experiences and information today, to start from a place of stillness and readiness and contemplation here together. So as you know, mindfulness is becoming aware of yourself, your body, and being here present in this moment. And as we are in community here together, I welcome you before you drop in to your body and into your own awareness to please be aware of each other. Maybe say good morning or offer a quick wave to someone sitting next to you or to anyone that catches your eye. Jose's in the back. We can wave to Jose. We can wave to the balcony. We can wave to each other just to get a sense of we're not here by ourselves. Thank you. So as we drop into this meditation, and if you are able, please sit up right. Try not to have anything in your hands, including phones that go off. Placing your hands open in your lap, feet grounded on the floor, and with your eyes partially or fully closed, whatever you're most comfortable with, as we begin to breathe in and out. As you continue to breathe, I invite you to become aware of your breathing. That's all we're going to be doing for the next 6 minutes, is breathing. Breathing in, holding, and exhaling. For those of you who might be new to meditation, sometimes counting helps. Breathing in for 6, holding, and exhaling for 6. As you continue to breathe, I invite you to become aware of your body and invite it to be still. We have nowhere to be right now and no one to be in this moment but ourselves in community. Imagine a wave as it rises and falls in and out as we allow ourselves to become still. Become aware of the moment of your breath, the in, the hold, the out. Become aware of what's going on internally and externally for all of us. Once we become still, allow whatever we are aware of to come and to go, just like our breath, in and out. There's no resistance in this moment, just awareness. And as you continue to breathe, stay in this moment of awareness, of not resisting, of not wanting anything. Any thought can come into our awareness. This is natural. Watch it come and watch it go. Allow it to dissolve with your breath, in and out. We are sitting together in practice, in breathing, sitting here together, and in this moment, there's no agenda, no trying, not expecting to get anything or to appear to be a good student. Just noticing, simply witnessing our breath in and out, aware of whatever comes, whatever goes, without judgment. Experiencing your stillness amidst all of your awareness. Experience your stillness as the eye of the storm. In some cultures, it is known as the heart. Rest into your heart, into that still point. Our still point has nothing to say, no opinions to offer, no likes or dislikes. In this silence, we can be our most true and authentic selves and communicate in our most authentic language. Our still point may be communicating something to us that we need to know for ourselves. Rest here for a moment longer. If a thought or desire pops up, allow it to come and to go. When you are ready, slowly come out of this meditation from this stillness. And my wish for you today is that may you get whatever you need from today, be it knowledge, valid assurance, validation, or a sense of community. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand it over to Ricky, who will showcase many of your amazing faculty accomplishments that have taken place this year. Well done, you. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. As we conclude this academic year, the symposium offers an opportunity for us to look back at all the amazing things that our faculty have accomplished. What you're about to see isn't just a collection of achievements, it's a testament to the crucial work that we do together. Let's face it, when we look at the bigger picture beyond our wonderful campus community, 2024-25 has been a rough ride for colleges, for faculty, a bad year for thinkers, and a bad year for minds in general. But you all kept going. You persevered and you accomplished. Despite everything, this year you created knowledge and you shared and spread knowledge. And that goes not just for the folks who are going to be on the slideshow that Jose is about to show for us, but for all the faculty. As we go through these highlights together, I hope you'll feel the same pride that I do in being part of this community of thinkers, creators, and problem solvers. So let's celebrate another year of faculty brilliance. And one last note, if you see your accomplishment on screen, we invite you, if you're willing and able, to please stand. All right, thanks, Jose. Awesome work. I'm going to call up CTL's own super accomplished Rodina Stevens to introduce our Student Voices segment.
Again, congratulations to all those who appeared on the screen, and even if you did not, we celebrate you today. So I have the great opportunity to introduce our Student Voices video. And one of the things that we appreciate about the video this year is that it is really a work and a product of our own students. So not only will you hear from students, and many of them were from Ricky's class, and and a few who were not, but they completely produced, they edited, they shot. Um, we decided, like, if it's a Student Voices video, why not let the students take over the video? So it was like a student takeover. And it's really good. And shameless plug, it was filmed at the new Com Central Multimedia Center that we just had the ribbon cutting ceremony for yesterday. So shout out to Dr. Miles, to Dr. Marissa, and my co-chair, Julio Rodriguez, because it was truly a labor of love. And what is a good testament about this video is that what you will see is a product of what SUNY WCC is we're putting out. We're educating our students. And so we are excited to look at this video. So enjoy, listen to, they're going to share their thoughts on AI, what we should know as faculty that they are using AI, and don't stop them, basically. So you'll see the video for yourself. So we'll let you reflect on that for a little while. They had a lot to say, but so we want to thank them. And I also forgot to acknowledge the WCC Television Club who helped to put this together. So thank you for watching. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Melinda Miles, who will come and share some remarks with us as well.
So for anybody who doesn't know, I'm Belinda Miles, the college president. And it's a pleasure to join you this morning for your day of professional development. And thank you to CTL for putting this together. I see you over there, Nicole and Ricky. Thank you so much. And what an exciting day to talk about AI and to move forward. The student voices are always very authentic and they just let you know what's really going on. It's like raising a teenager, right? You can tell us to do one thing, but you can't stop us if we really want to explore. So, but it's very appropriate at this time for the kind of learning that's taking place across academia for our students to have this tool available and for us to also stay on the leading edge as the ones who are helping to guide them with their learning acquisition. But this is such a wonderful time of year, the end of the academic year, so many accomplishments. That was extraordinary to see the items that were posted. Congratulations to everyone for your achievements, those that were listed and those that you were maybe a little shy about sharing. We know that you're all doing amazing things as you're pouring into our students. And we do get to celebrate not just the achievements of our graduating students, but the wonderful work that you're doing as faculty that I brag about all the time and many others do as well. You showcase it at our open houses and students are so impressed and their family members are as well. Coming into the new spaces that we're creating and understanding the accomplishments of our faculty is so impressive for those who are considering SUNY WCC. But it's not enough for us to accept our successes as the status quo. As we encourage students to strive to do better, we hold ourselves to the same standards. And it's this dedication for constant improvement that by our faculty that's critical to the success of the institution. We rely on that. And I thank the deans and others, other administrators, our provost for helping to guide that and also for the work that you do independently that you seek out to increase your portfolios. CTL serves an important role in our continuing progress. This year's CTL theme evolved. I love the word evolved. It's like one of my verbs. Reflects our commitment to growth and transformation, two other amazing words. And one of the most significant factors in the recent transformation of education, of course, is the rapid growth of AI. And AI represents more than just a technological change. It's an invitation to evolve how teaching occurs, how teamwork takes place, how learning takes place, and how we lead in higher education. Throughout history, transformational technologies have not only produced tremendous rapid gains for societies, but also disruptions, uncertainties, and fear. There are winners and there are losers, and it's incumbent upon us to understand the technology, its impact on our efforts, and how to best prepare our students for the future that they will be stepping into and even helping to create. This year's symposium offers a timely platform to foster collaboration to introduce a broader conversation about evolving pedagogies and to rethink the way we work and grow together as a campus community to move SUNY WCC's mission forward. We are very fortunate to have with us today Dr. Lance Eaton, the Senior Associate Director of AI in Teaching and Learning at Northeastern University. His work engages with the possibility of digital tools for expanding teaching and learning communities while considering the various deep issues and questions that educational technologies open up for students, faculty, and higher education as a whole. Dr. Eaton has given talks, written about, and presented at conferences on artificial intelligence, generative tools in education, academic piracy, open access, OER, open pedagogy, hybrid flexible learning, and digital service learning. I thought the academic piracy was like academic poetry in AI. Have you seen some of the poetry that AI writes? It is very, very suggestive. I like writing my own when I can. I mean, very colorful and you see images. That's what I need. Anyhow, back to the script. His musings, reflections, and ramblings on AI and education can be found on his blog. And I'm not sure if the blog is listed there. Do I have to say the name of the blog? Substack, thank you. Okay, https:// Okay, we'll let you send it around. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Eaton, Dr. Lance Eaton.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm introduction. Very excited to be here. And if you have a moment, if you can take out your phone, what I'm going to have you do is there's this QR code right here that and it's going to be on a couple slides, so you'll have a chance, but that will be a link. And it's also the short link right here. Again, it'll be on a few slides, but I want to emphasize there's a resource document that will give you access to the slides, a bit more information about my work, and then also this like prompt guidance and prompt library for educators, and then some additional resources down below. But they're broken into lots of different areas of, event and program planning, equity and inclusion, content, course content and materials. So this is open for folks to go in, explore, use. It's covered with a Creative Commons license, so you're welcome to borrow and adapt and all of that. But just want to make sure folks have that opportunity to get a hold of that. I'm sure they'll send it along afterwards, but I'll be referring to it a couple times during the talk today. So thank you, everybody. Super excited to be here. And I'm not going to bury the lead. I don't have all the answers. I'm not even sure I'm going to provide a lot of answers, but maybe richer questions for us to be asking ourselves, asking our colleagues, and thinking about with students. So why don't we get started? I'm going to start with a question for all of you. And that question is there any activity that you are passionate about? And if so, you can raise your hands. We have a bunch of liars in this room. Come on, you have all studied things to an advanced degree. People have things that they're passionate about. Again, it doesn't have to be academic. I mean, I'm a big gardening nerd, right? All right. Other people are just we're not gonna play the game. You're gonna make it hard today. Come on. We all have stuff we're passionate about that we pursue. It could be running, it could be cooking, it could be all sorts of things. Let me see those hands. See, I have the camera, so I can see. All right. Here's a better question. Keep your hands up if you know you're good at it. I saw some very, very enthusiastic hands raised with that. Thank you for that. Okay. And then the hard question, the question I think we're all thinking about in lots of ways is how do you know? How do you know that you're good at it? Right? And there's lots of ways we can answer this question. And it's a question we are thinking about in the teaching and learning context. And we come to know that we're good at something, either through our own internal effort to deeply understand what we're doing, or through external validations that come in many forms and possibilities. I'm sorry, on a technical piece here outside of the talk, I'm still getting a feedback echo a little bit, so I don't know if that can be adjusted, but just mentioning that. Cool. So often we need external validation. That's perfect. Now I don't hear it. Thank you. Often we need external validation before we can actually build internal validation and assessment, particularly as we're learning and engaging new things. And in general, external validation is important for our courses and the world at large. Like we want our professionals to not just have been validated by their own sense of confidence, but in many cases, I want my doctors, I want my lawyers, I want my nurses to also know that somebody else said yes, they are good to go. They can provide you with sound advice or recommendations or procedures. And so for education, when we think about how we determine if students are good at things, we've often relied on some methods and shied away from others. We've privileged that which can be really mass produced easy to create, to share, to grade, to return. Often tests and writing were the quickest and easiest ways to assess learning. Uh, and they're not always often the best ways to determine if applied learning had occurred. And I say this as somebody who has been teaching literature, teaching history, teaching these courses that are very deeply settled in writing traditions. And I consider myself and have been a professional writer for over 20 years. So none of what I'm saying here is like, there's no value in these things, but there is an over-reliance on these in many of our disciplines. And of course, like that makes sense within the US context where, we've often focused on tangible, quantifiable outputs, often over process, right? We are unfortunately inheritors of Taylorism and the Protestant ethic, where it's like the end result is what matters, production over process. And, we haven't given as much attention to the delivery of learning, um, or we haven't given much attention to the formation of learning rather than the demonstration of learning. We've often felt this tension about output over process, and it wrinkles our noses. It doesn't often feel like it's embodying the kind of education that many of us get into teaching for. A lot of times when we are focused on that external validation, like it can feel more transactional. It can feel transactional to our students. It can feel transactional to ourselves, because many of us are here. We've pursued things we are deeply interested in, with all sorts of passion to become experts. Um, we've pursued it and we believe in it and we see it as transformational. And so while we have these external assessments, often tests, or we have different types of certifications that need to be passed and things like that, those often feel transactional. They feel it to us, they feel it to our students, when what we're often looking for is that like internal drive, that internal meaning that happens when, well, really like when we fall in love with our subject matter, with the thing that we want to study. And part of the challenge of all of this is that higher education has been navigating between two outcomes, and I would say poorly satisficing its way through it. So in higher ed, we're here to support intellectual development of students, as to help them develop deep inner lives and civically present lives, that whole student approach. An education that pushes them to look inside their souls, to meaningfully connect with humans, to sustain society. And yet we're also here to guide them to prepare for work that they will do in their life, whether that's running a business, leading an organization, or experimenting in a lab. And these are equally important parts of what education means. And we can't really forego either of them, even though there's probably some folks in here who feel like one of these isn't the real educational experience, whatever we mean by that. And so this is a perpetual tension of like, how much do we lean into one or the other? And it's one that goes back for centuries. We can see this in the works of Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. We can see it in the works of Booker T. Washington and W.D. Du Bois of like, what is this education mean in terms of where the emphasis should be? But of course, all of this is, kind of thrown for a much bigger mucking up, if you will, in recent years, largely because of, well, this guy, or rather, not Clippy himself, but certainly one of his great grandchildren that has spawned the modern AI, generative AI, and instead of a future where we were afraid of like HAL 9000 or Skynet, we get an AI that feels an awful lot like a mixture between Sheldon Cooper and Ned Flanders. And we're kind of grappling with this moment. We're in this age where AI reflects this bigger challenge. One, we're going to need to reconcile if we're going to articulate that true combined value of education as a form of social, communal, and interpersonal development for years to come. So as I mentioned at the top, there's no magic bullet. Um, there's nothing that is going to make any of this easy. This is, as other people already today have said, it's gonna ask a lot of us. It's gonna ask for us to change and to rethink things that we've done and why we've done them. And I hope through what we talk about today, we'll have both some larger frameworks to think about and also some tangible things to go back to the classrooms and to try out and to test out. I also want to be clear that whatever I'm going to suggest and talk about today, none of it is going to be about building better mousetraps. Uh, I could do an entire talk about my arc of teaching, from being extremely proud of catching students not properly citing sources or inappropriately using Wikipedia, and being able to do that with just one word, like figuring out the ways to catch students. That's not really where I think I know myself I'm not there, and I don't think that's where any of this is going to really result in anything better than just more antagonism, more frustration, and more alienation between student and faculty. And so really what I'll talk about today are ways we can be thinking with students, or ways that we can be thinking about AI as a present thing and not as a thing that we banish, or that a thing that we try too much to control. I will talk about wanting, it's important to have guardrails, but not necessarily just trying to catch students. And so I want to acknowledge as we move into this, and of course this makes me think like maybe I should have renamed this like how to alienate your audience in 10 slides or less. But I want to just recognize like how much has been going on. And certainly again, it has been hinted at before. But you know, at the national level, right, we know this past year has been a lot. And there's many things that we felt unstable about. Um, and we're experiencing things that were unstable moving from unstable to becoming real harms to our students, to our faculty, to our institutions. And we've been in this space of like lots of things happening, because we've also been navigating AI. And like we can't talk about navigating AI unless, of course, we talk about the pandemic, right? That higher ed was just emerging from the biggest disruption in decades, in returning to whatever we want to declare normal to be. Generative AI comes right in and like scoops up so much of our attention, scoops up so much of our angst. Um, and so it just hasn't been easy. And the thing that I have seen is kind of this dismissal of that, or this absence of recognition that, many deeply caring educators uh, had to reinvent themselves, had to reinvent so much of what they were doing, readjust it, redesign it for the pandemic. Just as that was settling in, AI came in and was just like, hold my beer, right? It came in, and despite this deep work that faculty have been doing, many of them had to start off back on page one, because many faculty have been doing the things that we've wanted, that the research and so many other things have showed us is that the really good way of going about for creating learning experiences, right? So we started, we've been doing alignment for years, right? Doing that structure where you have those course outcomes and they're well defined, and you understand like by the end of the course what students will be able to do. And those are propped up, those are supported, those are evaluated with assessments. And then those assessments are, in alignment with whatever the learning materials are. There's a very clear pathway of how we structure learning to help students, to make sure we're assessing the right things, to make sure students are able to do the things we want them to do, right? But generative AI has changed both what can be made for students and faculty. And if you work so hard to build that perfect interconnection of all of your stuff, when AI comes in and it pulls on one of those strings, one of those threads, it pulls on all of the threads, and it does just a whole lot of harm to that web. And I've seen this. I've experienced it in my own classes. I've seen it with friends and colleagues who have been in some ways paralyzed because not because they don't care, but because it feels so much more to have to figure out. If the pandemic felt like a lot, this feels like uh, a much larger ask of us because it does require a lot of rethinking on lots of different levels while everything else is going on in the world. And so anytime I feel confused, frustrated, befuddled, angst by technology, I turn to Douglas Adams and his second favorite quote of mine. And his quote is, anything that is in the world when you are born is normal and ordinary. It's just a natural part of the way the world works. Two, anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. Three, anything invented after you're 35 is against the natural order of things. Now, regardless of our age or disposition, we're all going to need to create careers or to understand that our careers are going to be increasingly interwoven with AI. We're going to have to think about it, with it, through it, and with others, including students, in order to make sense of generative AI, in order to make sense of what teaching and learning looks like in the years to come. Now, I know we may be sick of it, right? We're like 2.5 years into this generative AI stuff. Hell, I'm sick of it, and it is both part of my full-time and part-time job. And yet the reality is, like, we we need all faculty to find our way through this mess, to get our hands in there and start playing around, right? We need you to help figure this out. And I know we're all struggling and frustrated and exhausted. Yet we need to keep developing the guidance, the insight, the transparency, the strategies that work with students and not against them. We need to think about assessment in the face of a tool that can help students do more, but also offers a temptation to bypass the necessary friction of learning. And so I know it's a big ask, but I also worry about what happens if we don't rise to the occasion. If we don't look to our classes as places of experimentation and learning for all of us, but close ourselves off from changing. That is, close ourselves off from learning. Because that's where we are right now. We're in a moment of deep, deep learning. And, you know, it really stinks that we have to do so much of it over the last few years, but our students need us. They need us to return to that vulnerability that many of us expressed during the pandemic, to acknowledge that this is all messy and it isn't going to be perfect, and yet we are here to help figure it out with them. Because many of them are scared and confused too about what this tool means. Yes, they're using it, but if anything, from 20 years of both being a student in higher education and also working in higher education has taught me is that people do want to learn, and also people are under a tremendous amount of demands and stress and vies for their attention. And so we all, in the face of what we all have to navigate, the temptation of AI is really strong unless we're providing structures to work around it, to work with it, to work through it. In I the thing that I find challenging and frustrating with this is that, like, AI right now isn't even that good, right? You can do some curious things, but it's also like incredibly inept. And I give you Exhibit A, or maybe I should call it Exhibit AI, right? I sat there using Claude for a good 3 to 5 minutes, 4 or 5 prompts back and forth. And all I wanted Claude to do was to make the table on the right align at the top. Every time I put in the prompt, spit back, absolutely, I'll take care of that right now. Every time it gave me middle alignment. So, took way more time in this case to try to get it to do what I wanted versus just copying that table and doing it in Word. And so we have this technology that is dubious and limited and also incredibly seductive to bypass learning. And that's a challenge for all of us. Coupled with that, it's also that the way it can duplicate many of our traditional methods of assessment. And so it feels very chaotic, fragile, and fragile. Um, and that's even before we wait to see what new things are going to happen with whatever next version of AI is coming out, or whatever next thing is happening politically in the higher ed world at large. And yet, I do have hope. And I think you should all have hope too, right? This chart gives me hope. These are all the different educational technologies that higher education has adopted over the last 60 years. And so let's do a little trip down memory lane, right? If you've been teaching or in education since the 70s, these are technologies that have become largely ubiquitous, we're largely familiar with, or have come and have already disappeared, right? We learned them for a while, and then they were jettisoned, right? And then we get into the 1990s and early 2000s. And we get things like digital databases and online library catalogs. We get whiteboards in classrooms, student information systems, right? These things that some of us play in daily are things that we have had to learn and now just absorb fairly easily. Into the 2000s, we get interactive simulations, learning management systems, we get wikis, we get video conferencing tools. And then into the 2010s, we get even more, right? We get intelligent tutoring systems, learning analytic systems, MOOCs, tablet devices, virtual reality, wearable computing. So all of that technology, all of it has become commonplace over the course of our lives. And also, if we are wondering why we're so exhausted, that might be part of the reason why, is like we're continually adapting and learning and jettison and picking up new things. So kudos for you for that resiliency. Often we are not even realizing how much we are figuring out and adapting. Because as they say in two of my favorite stories, Peter Pan and Battlestar Galactica, all of this has happened before and all of it will happen again. And that's part of where I get hope from, because we have playbook, or rather we have playbooks. And while all of those technologies may feel very, very different from generative AI, the seeds of how we develop our generative AI education are there. The meta practices and frameworks we've been developing for years are all around us to grab from. We may not know exactly what must be done, but we know that we can do the work, and we know that our work involves collaborating with other colleagues and our students. And then when we're doing that, we are often at our best. We are often doing our most amazing work. Sorry, I went back a slide. There we go. So right now, we're navigating 4 challenges with AI around all of this, right? In order to use AI really well, we need disciplinary knowledge, right? We need foundational knowledge in order to discern truth from fiction. And we need our students to know that. But then we also need to build our knowledge of AI, what it is, how it generates answers, its limitations, and its affordances. We need to be we need working knowledge of AI, just like we have working knowledge of computers, of learning management systems, like of how to use files or change file types or information searching and links. We don't have to be experts in AI, but we do need to build our comfort with this technology, which is hard because it is continually changing. And so there is a challenge there for us to navigate. But once again, so much of our other technology continually changes. The Word document program I was working with when I first started writing in like the 1990s is very, very different from the one that I'm working with now. And so it's worth recognizing it does feel like a lot. And again, we know we've been through this before. We also need to continue to learn how AI is going to be used in our disciplines and fields and industries that we're teaching in. The internet changed every discipline. There is no discipline today that is not doing things differently. That there is no discipline today that hasn't changed as a result of the internet. The same is going to be true for AI. Every discipline is going to end up finding new ways of using this tool, right? Regardless of the field or industry, right? That we are, I would, I would say, I was taking bets. I'd say that's a 90% chance that is a true statement. Um, that is likely to change so much in all of our disciplines. So we have to build that. We have to be keeping an eye on that horizon of like, how does this change what happens in the field? Because all of that leads us to, well, the final challenge, which is if given how it will change the field, it will then change what we need to teach and what we don't need to teach. And we just don't know what that is yet. Um, we're just in the process. It's an ongoing process of figuring it out. And we can have some suspicions about what it is. And of course, we have millennia of storytelling that's prepared us to just believe that this technology will make us stupider, right? That is a story we have been telling ourselves since Socrates, who told us that this whole writing thing was the path to idiocy. And so we have to be careful because we must also remember things will change and some of our strong beliefs may be disrupted or upended. And within that, how do we assess? How do we determine what skills do we need? Which skills need to be fostered? How are they going to be developed in this new structure? And how do we measure and evaluate them? And so that all leads me to what has been increasingly my strongest book recommendation to date. And it's amusing to me because I only read it last month and it has become my go-to book for educators to be thinking about how do we navigate in the world of AI. And I mean, I've read hundreds of books on teaching and learning, and I've read at this point probably over 100 books on AI. And this is the book that as soon as I read it, I was like, this is what we all need to be thinking about. And so it's Matt Bean's The Skill Code. And what Bean does is he recognizes that the thing we're all concerned about. How do you become knowledgeable and expert in your work if AI or other technologies are doing all the heavy lifting? And there's no good system to guide and support learners through those zones of proximal development. His framework focuses on this triad of challenge, complexity, and connection as these as foundations of skill development. And he provides this critical lens for rethinking skills and learning acquisition that can look like what rethinking skill critical lens for rethinking skills, and also helping us think about what learning acquisition can look like as AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, all of these lead us to reimagine our academic work. And so we know traditional assessments often measure discrete knowledge rather than authentic skill. And it's the skills that we know students need to thrive in the world, but they can't do it without obviously some knowledge and some foundational understanding of the discipline. And so Bean shows how technology can either undermine or enhance that. And I see what he does in this book as offering this roadmap for creating structures within disciplines and within courses that preserve the essential human elements of learning while leveraging AI as a partner or as a partner rather than a replacement. And probably the most important piece here, and we have seen this happen before in other technological spaces, is the idea that he offers up as chimeric of the word chimera. Uh, Chimeric approaches where where there's opportunities to blend human and technological capabilities that are thoughtfully integrated to enhance skill building. And so this can inform assessment design towards evaluation that intentionally incorporates AI while still measuring students' ability to engage with appropriate challenges, navigating complexity, and really building meaningful connections and conversations with with other students, with faculty, and with professionals. And so he encourages us um, to redesign assessments to focus on things like critical thinking under pressure, being able to articulate and explore systematic relationships, and collaborative problem solving. And all of these things line up with so much of what we know about research of things like team-based learning and project-based learning. And so to me, it stands as this really interesting text to delve into any discipline to think about where do we put these things? Where do these things show up? How do we navigate this um, nuanced situation we find ourselves in where we know these tools are out there. We know they're impacting our, if not already, are going to be impacting our discipline. We want students to be mindfully and thoughtfully engaged with them, but also not give over to them. And a lot of what Bean offers up is helping us think about some of the relational pieces of this, which again is something we learned, we had known even before the pandemic, but also showed up so much in the pandemic. We know relationship rich education is what is one of the more transformative aspects and is what builds or helps to build motivation and connection and internal drive of students. So as we are thinking about what to do, um, I would say keep these ideas in mind, return to this book as a like your own, start building your own disciplinary blueprints. Because that's the other piece within this is where we are right now with AI in education, like there's been a lot of great general things done. There's this amazing amount of folks out there doing this work, but where the answers are really going to come out, that are going to come from, is from the disciplines, because this tool is going to look different in each of the disciplines, where it shows up and why it shows up. And so that is a ground up approach that we really need everybody to be a part of. Okay, so that's kind of like the big picture thing. But one of the things that for me is always important is like, that's great, but what does this look like? And so what I'm going to do is walk you through a couple different examples of activities and assessments and things that you can do with generative AI in your classrooms with your students that feel like they're striking that balance of not leaving up so much, leaving it to uh, not banning it, and also not allowing it to take up too much bandwidth or for it to replace the actual activity, replace the actual learning. So one of my favorites is engaging in red teaming. So what is red teaming? You may have heard this in relation to the military or hacking or even journalism. And the goal of red teaming is to work hard to find weaknesses in something. And so with regards to AI, the goal is to have students be red teams to figure out and determine what is accurate, right, or problematic with outputs. You can do this in several ways. First, as an instructor, you can continually bring in examples or embed them through the course to get students to see if they can discover it and what kind of critiques they bring. You can also have students create content with generative AI, maybe even an assignment submissions that must be vetted and critiqued by other students for questionable AI content. And you can also challenge students to go out into the online wild world and find examples that they believe are generative AI and why, and use that as a means of like really building those critical analytical skills. It's building AI literacy, helping them really think about how knowledge is constructed. And so this is probably one of the more powerful ways because it keeps them focused on like what feels, you know, what is the pattern of AI to keeping an eye out for, and what are the problems with it? And having them forefront that knowledge continues to show up in some of the studies I've been reading that like that's really crucial to them being more skeptical of it. One of the best gateways to doing this with students that I would recommend is to start with images. And sometimes it's just asking the AI to produce and reproduce the same image time and time again to see what kind of differences show up. In image works, and this is a tip from Mahabali of like starting with images is really helpful because we are just more prepared to pick up on bias that shows up in visual images than textual. And so building those muscles with images and then moving over to text is certainly one of the ways to get started with this. So prove the output, right? And this is another one where you actually have students have to prove an output of AI. Every line. How do they know that this is true outside of AI? How clear are they about it? And so this is the idea of, taking the input, taking an input from AI and putting it into another environment. Maybe it's into a Google Doc, and now they have to code it line by line. Highlight the sentence or comment on the sentence. Maybe it is, maybe using a color scheme where it's like green is true, orange is uncertain, and red is false, and have them start to like prove those things, right? So you can get them into really doing close text analysis, but just with a different type of text. And again, it improves their information literacy, their argumentation, critical analysis. A lot of those things are front and center. In how they do this. Um, I meant to show this before, but like here's an example of a prompt. And again, these you can find in the resource document, but here's an example where you yourself could actually create something problematic for students to then have to take apart. So in this prompt, you're saying create a SOAP note for a fictional patient, develop at least 3 areas where reasoning, documentation, or care decisions are unclear, unsupported, or potentially dangerous. And then you can also have it suggest some discussion questions. But like this is something that can continue to like challenge them, to help them have to like really be scrutinizing what comes out of these tools and where it's useful and where it isn't and why. One of the best use cases around using generative AI is really around simulations. And you can use this as for lots of different disciplines. I see a lot of it in the health services area. People have been using this. I've seen this within legal education. This becomes one of the really strong ways of engaging with this. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, hold on one second. Nope, sorry, fake out. Uh, But this is where it gets really interesting with generative AI. This is where like empowering students to see it less as an answer machine and more as an interactive space becomes really cool. This becomes, they can start to really think about applying their understanding of the topic in a particular context. And so to me, that becomes, it makes these things real. And I think this is something that much of our education is much harder to do. We're often facilitating that information and that very banking concept of like, here's a bunch of knowledge, you know, put it in your brain and now use it versus actually learning it in the nuanced context in which it's important to understand. It's important to apply. And I think that to me is a really powerful piece for what generative AI has to offer. So again, here's a prompt where you might create a client, a profile of a client that you would then actually use as the basis for a simulation. And I mean, what's cool about these is, you can have students do this interaction, they can submit the chat log and or again, take it out of the chat and do that annotation activity that I was talking about before. And then as reflection. Reflection is, the metacognitive workhorse of teaching and learning. It is so powerful. And yet most of us in our experience, like we run into this challenge with our students where if they are earlier in their reflection practice, they are going to often submit something that we're going to look at and we're going to be like, I wish I could have asked a deeper question here. And I wish I could have asked a deeper question here, right? We'll get something that will be like, I didn't like it. And you're like, I want to know more. Why didn't you like it? And so using a chat bot, using a prompt or what have you with students so that the AI becomes this reflection tool, a dialogic reflection, if you will, that keeps pushing them to respond. You know, it's no longer if they say I don't like it, that's it. It's well, what didn't you like about it, right? You can craft some of these custom GPTs or custom AIs to be really responsive in that regard. And then the reflection becomes a dialogue, and that's what they submit. Like, I love reflection. And also that blank page, I love reflection, I love writing, and also the blank page is gonna mean I'm gonna keep putting it off until like I'm ready. And that's usually like the night before something is due, or at least most of my education was like that. Imagine if the chatbot is actually just an ongoing dialogue that the student starts in class after you know you share that assignment, and they can keep going back to it back and forth over the next week, and they can just pick up where they left off. It doesn't feel different from doing that as a paper, except that it or like on paper that doesn't necessarily feel different, but experientially that is different. A chat thread that you're just going back and forth with over a period of time that's just waiting there is going to feel different from having to write a reflection paper. And yet you're also probably going to get more refined insights that have been nudged and asked along the way by using like AI as this reflection tool. So here again is just another prompt that you can go back to and take a look at of like how you might use AI or have students use AI to create that reflection tool. And then this last approach is really for folks that want to be forward looking. You know, one of the things that I always keep thinking about is student agency, student choice, and having them like, be part of course creation. And I've done this in several different ways in my education, in my teaching career of like, how do students help co-create the course? It doesn't mean I don't have a big picture and structure and I'm there to scaffold all of it, but like giving them the reins. And one of the ways that I think is going to be really interesting is like sitting down with students and as a course, like collectively navigating what are the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you need to excel in this particular discipline in the face of AI. In like making that course, making that where students are really having to learn what is the discipline, what are the things that are needed, and really dig into, well, what are the things that we're trading out? What are the things we need to hold on to? I think it's an incredibly powerful way to engage with students, to build trust, and to help them actually really have to think about like, what am I going to do? And this is something that I have seen with lots of different students, including programming students who are genuinely concerned, like, do I have a future anymore if everything's vibe coding? Or are wondering about, now that this tool is here, how much fun do they have problem solving? Or is it they just bring it over to ChatGPT and feeling that seduction, feeling that pull because of all the different things? All right, so a few last points before we have hopefully a little time for questions. The first is, abstinence has never been a great strategy. It didn't work for prohibition. It didn't work for the war on drugs. It's not going to work for AI. And that means that we have to learn about it, play with it, and think about it for our classes and find where it fits. So banning it or dismissing it outright is not really going all that will do is further delegitimize ourselves to our students. And that's something higher ed has already been doing in buckets. So it doesn't mean we can't have guardrails. Like we absolutely should have guardrails about where it shows up, but we also have to have clarity about how it may or can show up in a course. And you can talk about it and surface concerns and find interesting use cases. For me, so much of what I have learned about where it can be really powerful has been in classes where I've made sure to, have that be an open and ongoing conversation. It's some clear places where it doesn't, but also continually asking students about how they're using it, like recognizing that the conversation is going to help me understand and also is going to surface some things that are going to be useful for other students. Uh, no matter where you stand with generative AI, you may hate it. And I wouldn't blame you. Like I have 15 different feelings about AI, and that was just this morning, right? But even if you're in that space where you say it has no value in your class, I implore you to find a way that it is useful and valuable to you. Play with it until you have a use case where you're like, gosh, this is actually really helpful. And it doesn't mean you have to keep doing that thing. But I think it's important to understand this tool for some people is really transformational. I've seen it with students, I've seen it with colleagues, I've seen it with friends, that there's ways this can be amazingly helpful. That's just powerful. And if we can't recognize that, or if we can't build our own empathic threads to understanding and thinking about what that means for the way we teach and what we are telling our students about these tools, again, I think we're gonna increasingly make ourselves irrelevant. And there's plenty of examples in newsprint of like, you know, of students sharing like, how can you tell me this is not a useful tool when it's been a really useful tool for me? And so I want to emphasize that make sure you find wherever you are on the continuum around your feelings about generative AI, find something that's really useful. And then none of us can figure this out on our own. Like we have to figure it out together. Um, yes, anyone can decide that, how they're going to implement it into their courses and go ahead and do that. But this is a significant change. And it's a change that, is on par, obviously more on par, is more important than the pandemic and is bigger than, I would say as big, if not bigger than the rise of the digital classroom. And so we need our collective wisdom. We need the wisdom that can bring different knowledge and understanding about these tools, the way we're using them, and the things that work, won't work, or might work. We need experimentation. AI is here and is going to continue to change, and no single person can keep up with that. I certainly can, and I'm just like I'm here in front of you as a quote unquote expert. Like it's impossible for me to keep up. Nobody expects you to keep up with all of it. Rather, it is important to build communities of practice. It is important that you are thinking about and in conversations with others about what you're learning about it, how it's working, and sharing those things. I've been working in academia for decades, putting people together, help figure things out. That's not only what we do in our classes, but that's what we do in higher education and have been doing for a very long time. And so whatever this path forward is with AI, like it's not going to be easy, and it's not clear, and it is filled with uncertainties. But it's also an opportunity. It's also like what a moment. We get to figure this out together and to make it easier and make it clearer uh, and give some certainty to one another and to our students. And so this is again where my hope comes from is rooms like this. I've talked with thousands of faculty and scores of colleges and universities. I've advised and consulted many organizations. It's the people that are here to figure it out, are here to face this challenge. And while I know we'll continue to live in interesting times, to a degree that we are all tired of, I also see that this is really there's a lot of possibility in this moment. And so, no, it won't be easy, but I really do believe that it is the room of educators who are ready to take it on, who are ready to be a bit vulnerable, to recognize we don't have answers, but we're going to start figuring it out and we're going to start experimenting. Like that is what we've been doing in education for a very long time, and it's something we can continue to do. So, thank you all so much, and I believe there might be time for some questions.
We have about 5 minutes for questions for Lance. And remember that we do have these ceiling mics and they are very sensitive and they will pick up what anything that is said and it's going to show up. Questions? I can start with a question and I'm asking for a friend here. What if you just really viscerally hate its guts? And for me, I mean, for this friend, it's less about the plagiarism or whatever, and more about the sort of what some people call the original sin of AI, the use of copyright works to train it without anyone's
Mm.
permission, especially on the image side. And then also the things like the environmental impacts. These are also things that students who are anti-AI bring up with me as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So I'll start with the original sin of copyright. And I'll be clear, I'm more radical in this than others, and some of that has to do with my dissertation, which was on academic piracy, as mentioned. And it was about this idea of like copyright won't save us, and there's massive problems with copyright. So I am hesitant to believe it's an original sin of copyright because copyright has left us in a place, at least in academia, where like my study was interviewing scholars who can't access research because so much of it is behind paywalls because publishers have acquired like all of the copyrights from scholars. And so in order for them to be scholars, they have to basically go to pirate platforms in order to access research literature so they can produce research literature that's going to end up behind a paywall. And these were people everywhere from independent scholars to community college faculty to Ivy League faculty. So to me, like our copyright system is pretty messed up. In my, I guess I can say professional opinion. I literally studied it and got a doctorate in it. The fact that works from Hemingway to Einstein, people that have died 60 years ago are still locked behind a paywall is a problem, right? Is something that I agree. I'm a little concerned about like how many of the AI companies, Meta, ChatGPT, have abused copyright. I also don't think copyright is our answer. Like I think we really do need a fundamental rethinking. So I'm here for that conversation. I get that sense of in so that's one piece of the answer. The other is around copyright is like copyright has always evolved, right? When we first had a idea of copyright, it was 14 years from publication with the opportunity to renew for another 14 years, and that was it. So what we have seen every time a new technology arrives throughout the 1800s, throughout the 1900s, up through now, copyright has changed. And there were people who were like fiercely in opposition to or fiercely concerned about this is going to eliminate XYZ. It was going to eliminate music at one point, it was going to eliminate how music was accessible and things like that. And so to me, it's a gosh, our the entire framework of copyright is broken in my view. And so I I feel less I feel less bound to that because I think clinging to that is like reinforcing the structure. And the other piece to this is, and this was a piece I wrote or was published last week, is like copyright isn't going to protect us from AI because it's like still largely big, powerful corporations that own most of the intellectual property, and to think that they aren't just going to get their cut, and the people the that really the are individuals are still going to get the short end of it, as they have been within the larger structure of copyright. So that's one piece of it. The environmental piece is also a real concern. And also, if if we had decided that the first generation of any technology was too wasteful to pursue, then we wouldn't have most technology. Like, and that goes all the way back to light bulb, right? In what we have seen in the last few years is yes, Like like we do see AI having a environmental cost. That there has been a reduction in how much of that of this has occurred. And what I mean by that is, if you will notice, many of the AI tools offer uh, freer, free-ish advanced models, right? When ChatGPT came out 2.5 years ago, there was 3.0. ChatGPT doesn't even really offer that anymore. It's 3.5 or 4. A lot of these AI companies are doing those types of things, and the reason they're doing them is because the newer models are more energy efficient. So it is saving them money, which is their interest, but it is also energetically or environmentally less harmful. And the other piece of this is, like, if we want to have a conversation about, again, I'll speak to the system structure here. It's like, if we want to have a conversation about AI and its environmental costs, sure. But we were burning through the world well before AI came on. Like, I have no doubt everybody in this room has at least one video streaming account or regularly uses YouTube and other free streaming platforms. All of that, like data servers, these large server farms that they talk about with AI, they all existed before AI. They existed to do all of the emails and the files we store online, and the videos and the podcasting. Like, all of those things are already here. And so, like, if we want to make AI an example, that's fine. But if we're not addressing that larger systematic thing, it feels like it's a way to dislike AI, but still be able to hold on to all the other things that we're doing that are environmentally incredibly problematic, right? Like, we were taking all sorts of we've been extracting minerals and doing harm well before AI. And AI may feel like, and has been presented as, doing so much more, but it's doing more of the same. And so, again, if we want to be concerned, then that's the bigger question to be asking, is like, to what degree do we want to actually dig into our practices, and how much, even at the institutional level, we rely on these harmful technologies.
Thank you. I think we're probably out of time for questions, but I want to thank Lance Eaton again for giving us some wonderful food for thought. I have one quick announcement, which is that there's one of our breakout sessions, which we're going to go to soon. The room, we can't get into it. So room librarians and counselors, on your handout there, it says 368. Instead, you're going to go to 135. Okay, librarians and counselors. And with that, I want to bring up Vanessa Morris, our provost, to conclude.